A man is running. His knees are bent, his hands are raised toward his face, his head is turned slightly down and to the right. He has been in this exact position for 1,947 years. He is plaster. The plaster was poured into a cavity in the volcanic ash. The cavity had once been his body. He is here because a boy in Misenum stayed home to read. The boy was 17 years old. His name was Gaius Plinius Caecilius Secundus. On the afternoon the mountain opened, his uncle, admiral of the imperial fleet, author of an encyclopedia in 37 volumes, a man who slept 4 hours a night because he could not bear to waste the others, invited him to come along, to investigate, to see. The boy looked up from his book. He was reading Livy. He said no. The admiral went without him. The admiral did not come back. 27 years later, on a quiet afternoon at a villa on the coast south of Rome, the boy, now a man of 43, a Roman senator with gray at his temples, received a letter from a friend. The friend was writing a history of the empire. He needed to know what had happened to the admiral that day. He asked, with the tact of a fellow writer, if the nephew would tell him. The nephew picked up a reed pen. He had not written about that afternoon in 27 years. He began, "Pedisut tibi avunculi me exitum scribam." You ask that I write to you about my uncle's death. He wrote 2 letters. He sent them. They were published in his lifetime. They were copied in monasteries in the 9th century, printed in Venice in 1508, taught in classrooms by the time anyone went looking for the buried city. When the diggers finally found Pompeii in 1748, 1669 years after the ash had fallen, the words were already waiting. The boy who had stayed home with his book had been carrying the entire city without knowing it all that time. This is the story of a civilization preserved by what destroyed it and remembered by someone who never meant to remember. It is also the story of the man in plaster. How does an empty space hold the shape of a person? How does a private letter written for one reader end up holding the memory of 20,000? And what does it mean that the most complete record we have of any ancient city was carried accidentally by a teenager who refused to put down his book? A woman is pulling bread from an oven. The oven is built into the wall of a small bakery on the Via dell'Abbondanza in a town on the Bay of Naples. The bread is round, the size of a dinner plate, scored into 7 wedges before baking so the loaves can be torn apart by hand at the table. The stamp of the bakery, the owner's name in raised letters, has pressed itself into the crust of each one. She lifts them out with a long wooden peel, one after another, and sets them on a board to cool. It is just before 7 in the morning. The light is pale, slanting in over the rooftops from the east. A dog is asleep in the doorway. 2 children pass on their way to fetch water from the public fountain at the corner. A man sets up a stand of cabbages across the street, calling out prices to no one in particular. There is the smell of yeast and hot flour, and underneath it, faint but present, the smell of the sea. The woman wipes her forearm on her tunic. There is a streak of flour on her skin where she rests the board. She does not look up at the mountain. The mountain has been there since before her grandmother was born. It is a green slope to the north, vineyards on its lower flanks, woods at its top. It is just a mountain. The wine grown on its slopes is the best in Campania, and the wine merchants of this town send it as far as Britain and the eastern frontier of Syria. The town is called Pompeii. It holds, by careful estimate, somewhere between 11 and 20,000 people. It has a forum, an amphitheater that seats every adult who lives here, 3 public bath complexes, 2 theaters, and roughly 130 bars. It exports fish sauce in clay amphorae, stamped with the names of its merchants, and those amphorae have been recovered in the last 2 centuries from harbors all across the western Mediterranean. The woman finishes the last loaf. The morning has begun. A stonemason is cutting limestone. He is 50 years old, give or take. His hands are knotted from 40 years of this work. He kneels next to a block of pale Vesuvian limestone in the construction yard at the southern end of the Pompeian Forum. In his left hand, a wooden mallet. In his right, an iron chisel. He sets the chisel against the marked line and strikes the block parts cleanly. It is around 80 BC. Roughly a decade has passed since the Roman general Sulla took this town by siege, and Pompeii is being rebuilt as a Roman colony. The Forum is being expanded. New temples are going up. Latin inscriptions are being carved over older ones in a script the mason's father could read, but he himself cannot. He grew up speaking Oscan. So did everyone he knew. Oscan is the language of his town's founders, the people who built the first wall around this hillside above the river Sarno 700 years ago. Before that, the Greeks of Cumae traded here. Before that, Etruscans came south. Long before any of them, in a layer the mason will never see, were the people who made obsidian tools. His apprentice, a boy of 15, carries blocks from the cart to the line. The boy speaks Latin in the yard and Oscan at home. In a generation, no one will speak Oscan in the yard at all. The graffiti on the inside walls of the older houses in Oscan letters will still be there, slowly being painted over. This is how a town becomes Roman, not in one event, but in a generation of mornings like this one. Stone by stone, word by word, the Forum that the mason is helping to rebuild will stand for 160 years before it is shaken by an earthquake. It will be rebuilt again, and it will stand for 17 more before it is buried, complete, almost intact, by a mountain no one in the yard considers dangerous. The mason sets down his mallet. He drinks from a clay cup. He goes back to work. A magistrate is examining a column. His name is Marcus Holconius Rufus, and his name is preserved in the inscriptions of this town because his family has paid for the rebuilding of public buildings for 2 generations. He is wearing a heavy wool cloak against the winter cold. His breath shows in the air. He is standing in the construction yard of the Temple of Jupiter at the northern end of the Pompeian Forum, and he is touching the new column with the flat of his hand, checking the plumb. It is around 70 AD. 8 years have passed since the temple fell down, and the temple is not yet finished. Nothing in the town is yet finished. The Forum baths, the basilica, the Temple of Apollo, the houses of half the wealthy families, all still bear scaffolding or fresh patches, or the pale new stone that hasn't yet weathered to match the old. What happened in February of the year 62 was an earthquake. The chronicler Seneca, who recorded it from Rome, wrote that part of Pompeii fell and Herculaneum was damaged, and Nuceria was shaken, and a flock of 600 sheep died at once in a field suffocated. No one understood why. Seneca proposed underground winds and shifting waters. He was guessing. What no one knew, what no one could have known, was that the earthquake had a cause beneath their feet that was older than memory. The last time the mountain to the north had erupted was around 1,500 years before. There was no one alive who remembered it. There was no record of it. The mountain slopes were the best farmland in Italy. Holconius signs off on the column. His secretary, a freedman with a wax tablet, marks the date. They walk to the next stone. In the bas-relief on the household shrine of a banker named Caecilius Jucundus, the artist has carved the earthquake itself, the temple of Jupiter tilting sideways, statues falling. The relief is visible today in the same wall of the same house, exactly where Jucundus left it. He had it carved as a reminder. It became a forecast. A painter is finishing a face. He is 25, maybe a little younger. He is standing on a low wooden scaffold in the dining room of a wealthy household in the eastern half of Pompeii. In his left hand, a small clay dish of red pigment. In his right, a fine brush of pig bristle. He is working against the clock. The plaster on the wall in front of him is wet, and once it dries, 3 hours, maybe 4, the paint will no longer bind. Whatever he finishes by then is the painting forever. Whatever he doesn't finish has to be cut out and replastered tomorrow. The face he is finishing belongs to Ixion, the mortal king who tried to seduce a goddess and was bound to a burning wheel for eternity. The wheel is already painted in vivid yellow ochre against a black ground. The figures of Hermes and the wronged goddess Hera are already complete. Only Ixion's face remains. The painter steadies his wrist on his other hand and lays in the line of the cheek. The pigments at his feet have traveled, some of them, across an empire. The cinnabar red is from Spain, where it is mined from a mountain near Almaden. The Egyptian blue, in a separate dish, is manufactured in the bay just to the west, in the workshops near Puteoli, from a recipe the Egyptians invented 2,000 years ago. The yellow is local earth. The black is lampblack, scraped from the inside of oil lamps. This dining room belongs to a freedman, a man born a slave who bought his freedom and made a fortune in wine. His house is not the grandest in Pompeii. There are dozens grander, but every wall of every room is painted in scenes from Homer and Ovid and the Greek tragedies, in still lifes of game birds and pears, in long mythic landscapes that pretend the wall is a window. This is what is buried in 17 years. The walls, the faces, the pretend windows. The painter finishes the cheek. He moves to the eye. A man is being read to. He is reclining on a couch in the garden of a villa above the bay, and a freedman is reading aloud in Greek from a treatise of Theophrastus on stones. A second freedman sits at a small table to the right, taking dictation in Latin. The man on the couch is listening to the first and speaking to the second at the same time. He does this for hours. He has done it for 40 years. His name is Gaius Plinius Secundus. He is 54 years old. He commands the imperial fleet at Misenum, the western anchor of Roman naval power, and he has held a half-dozen procuratorships across the empire, Spain, Gaul, the African coast. He sleeps 4 hours a night. He bathes briefly because the bath is a waste of reading time. While he eats, someone reads to him. While he travels, someone reads to him in the carriage, and a scribe takes notes by lamplight. His nephew, who knows him well, will later write that his uncle considered any hour not used for study an hour lost. The book being completed in this garden is called Naturalis Historia. It will be 37 volumes long. It will contain, by the author's own count in the preface, 20,000 facts drawn from 2,000 earlier works, written by 100 authors. It will cover astronomy, geography, anthropology, zoology, botany, mineralogy, pharmacology, sculpture, painting, mining. It will be the first encyclopedia of the Western world. He dictates a line about the medicinal properties of a kind of clay. The freedman writes it down. His method, his nephew will later record, is this. He reads nothing without making excerpts. He says there is no book so bad that no part of it is useful. He carries notebooks everywhere. He once rebuked a friend, mildly, for stopping to admire a fresco. Admiring is fine, but the time could have been used for something more. In the preface to the Natural History, dedicated to the Emperor Titus, he writes, Rerum natura, hoc est vita, narrator. Nature is the subject of this work. That is, life itself is what is being told. He has 2 years to live. A merchant is checking the seal on an amphora. His name is Aulus Umbricius Scaurus, and he makes the best fish sauce in the Western Mediterranean. His amphorae have been found by archaeologists in harbors from southern France to North Africa, each one stamped in red ink with his name and the abbreviated grade of the product inside. GFSCOM. Garum of the highest quality, made of mackerel, the fish sauce of consuls and senators. He is 50 years old. He is, in this town, very rich. It is late summer or early autumn of the year 79. The exact day will be argued about for 2,000 years. In this courtyard, behind his house on the western edge of Pompeii, the fermenting tanks are open to the sun, and the smell, sharp and salty and slightly sweet, carries on the wind for blocks. The neighbors have stopped commenting on it. They have lived with it for a generation. His freedmen sit at a low table making the accounts. A shipment is leaving for Narbonne in 3 days, 1,200 amphorae, sealed with cork and pitch, stamped, labeled, palletized. The accountants tick off the totals on wax tablets. Coins are weighed in a small bronze scale. Scaurus walks the line of amphorae. He bends down. He sets his ear against one and taps the side, listening for the dull sound of a complete seal. He moves to the next. Outside the courtyard, the town is full. The amphitheater is busy with afternoon games. The forum is full of voters reading the campaign graffiti painted on the public walls. Vote for Holconius. Vote for Cuspius Pansa. The fruit sellers ask you to vote for Marcus Cyrenius. Bars are full. The 2 theaters, the smaller for music and the larger for plays, are seating audiences for the evening. In the brothel on the Vico del Lupanare, a woman is laughing at something a customer said. The town has a name and a calendar and 130 bakeries and a city council and a network of lid pipes carrying fresh water from a spring 20 miles away. The pipes are working today. The water is cold and clean. A breeze comes off the bay. Scaurus straightens and looks at the sea. A vintner is kneeling in her vineyard. She is 40 years old, a freedwoman who inherited the plot from her former owner along with her freedom. The plot is on the southern slope of the mountain, halfway between Pompeii and the summit. Around her, in long, neat rows, the vines are heavy with dark grapes, ready for harvest. She holds one cluster in her hand and turns it in the light. The grapes are good. The harvest will be good. The wine of the mountain is the best wine in Italy, and her small plot will pay her this year more than her former owner ever paid her in wages. She is also worried. In the last weeks, something has been wrong, and she cannot name it. The ground shook again last night, small, not violent, but enough to wake her. The well behind the house came up cloudy yesterday morning and tasted faintly of metal. The dogs in the valley have been barking at nothing, all of them, in the dark. 2 days ago, the chickens stopped laying. The leaves on the vines have yellowed earlier than they should. She has lived on this mountain her whole life. None of these things by itself is unusual. The ground shakes sometimes. Wells go cloudy, dogs bark, but all of them at once, in one season, is something she has never seen. She does not know what it means. There is no one she can ask. The mountain has never done anything. The mountain is a mountain. The geographer Strabo, writing decades before, had noticed that the rocks of the summit looked burned and had wondered in a single sentence in a long book whether the mountain might once have been on fire. No one had read that sentence. No one had applied it. The vintner has not heard of it. Her grandfather did not hear of it. The mayor of Pompeii has not heard of it. She crushes a grape between her thumb and forefinger. The juice is dark and warm. The ground does not shake again. Not in this moment. The cluster she holds is heavy and ready. She will pick the harvest tomorrow. She does not pick the harvest tomorrow. We are halfway in. Let us see where we stand. A town on the Bay of Naples in the year 79. About 15,000 people. A bakery, a forum, 130 bars, a fish sauce merchant rich enough to ship his amphorae to North Africa, a freedwoman vintner on the slope of the mountain whose dogs have been barking. A few days' journey to the north, in the naval base at Misenum, an admiral of 54 who has just finished an encyclopedia. A few rooms away from him in that same villa, a nephew of 17, on summer holiday from his rhetoric studies in Rome, reading Livy on the terrace. Two things are about to happen. The first is that the mountain none of these people understands is going to open. The second is that one of them, the one least likely to matter, the nephew, the boy with the book, is going to live long enough and be asked the right question by the right friend to carry the entire story forward. The admiral will not carry it. He is going to die in the next 24 hours. The vintner will not carry it. The hillside she is standing on will not exist in 3 days. The merchant Scaurus, the magistrate Holconius, the painter on the scaffold, the woman pulling bread from the oven. None of them is going to carry it. Most of them will not survive the week. Those who survive will not write. The Romans buried what they had to bury, paid what they had to pay, and moved on. Only one person in this story is going to put words to it. He has not put words to it yet. He will not for 27 years. Watch the boy on the terrace. We will meet him again. A boy is reading on a terrace. He is 17 years old. He sits on a low couch with his legs folded beneath him, a papyrus roll open across his lap, the right hand unrolling, the left rolling back. He is reading Livy, the 3rd decade, the books on Hannibal, and he is enjoying himself. The afternoon light is the warm, late light of the bay, the kind that turns the limestone of the villa yellow at the edges. Below, the naval harbor of Misenum is visible. The long stone breakwater, the warships at anchor, the small launches moving between them. His name is Gaius Plinius Caecilius Secundus. He is here visiting his uncle, his mother's brother, who has no children and has begun, with the casual matter-of-factness of his generation, to refer to the boy in his will. The boy was born in a town called Comum, in the north of Italy, at the foot of the Alps. His father is dead. His mother sits a few paces away, working at a piece of embroidery in the slow, patient way of women in that family. She is the admiral's sister. Her name is Plinia. The boy is studying rhetoric in Rome under a teacher named Quintilian, who in a few years will publish his own book on how to teach rhetoric and who considers this boy one of his promising students. The boy has a friend in Rome, a few years older, a young man from a senatorial family, dark-eyed, quiet, deeply read. His name is Cornelius Tacitus. They have already begun to exchange letters. Tacitus, even at this age, is interested in history. The boy unrolls a little further. Hannibal is in the Alps. The elephants are dying in the cold. Livy is good at this, the slow, precise destruction of an army by terrain. His uncle passes through the terrace, talking to a secretary, holding a wax tablet in one hand and a piece of fruit in the other. He does not stop. He is composing something. He goes back inside. The boy reads on. The mountain to the south is visible, green, ordinary. He does not look at it. A woman is standing on a terrace, looking south. She is the same woman, the boy's mother. She has come up from the lower garden where the slaves were beating the dust out of the rugs, and she has paused, the way one pauses when something is wrong with the light. The light is wrong. It is the 7th hour of the day, by the Roman count, roughly 1 in the afternoon, and the sun is still high, but the air has a strange yellow cast, as if a film has been laid over it. She looks south. She sees on the horizon beyond the bay a cloud. The cloud is unusual. Pliny has lived on this coast all her life, and she has not seen this cloud before. It is not the shape of a storm cloud. It is not the shape of a sea cloud. It rises straight from a single point on the southern shore, from the mountain, in a column, narrow at the bottom and broadening as it climbs, branching at the top into a wide cap. Her brother will later describe it in a letter as resembling a tree, Pini arboris, the shape of a pine. She calls her brother. He comes out, sandals half on, towel still around his neck from the cold bath he has just taken. He sees the cloud. He stops. He says he wants to go closer. He wants to see it. He calls for a light boat. He invites the boy. The boy, who is in the next room with Livy, looks up, considers, and says, "No. Dubito constantiam vocare and imprudentiam debem." I do not know whether to call it constancy or imprudence. Agebam enim duodevicensimum annum. I was in my 18th year. Posco librum titi, Livy, et quasi perotium lego. I ask for a book of Livy and read it as if at leisure. The admiral does not press him. He goes alone. He records the date in his own dispatch. Nonum cal, Septembris hora fere septima. On the 9th day before the calends of September, around the 7th hour, the 24th of August. That is what his nephew will write 27 years later, from his memory and from his uncle's dispatch and from whatever notes a 17-year-old made at the time. There is reason now to doubt the date. A charcoal inscription discovered in 2018 in a house being renovated in Pompeii in the weeks before the eruption is dated to the 17th of October. The carbonized fruit on the tables of the buried houses is autumn fruit, pomegranates, walnuts, figs already dried. Many of the bodies wore heavy wool. The wind direction recorded in the ash deposits matches October, not August. The most likely answer is small and human. A copyist in a monastery, 800 or 900 years after the event, miscopied a number. Even the eyewitness does not reach us untouched. The admiral is sitting in the stern of a fast galley, watching the mountain. The galley has cleared Misenum. The wind is from the south-southwest, and it carries now what the smell of the cloud has begun to do to the air, the sharp metallic edge that is not the sea. The column is enormous. He estimates it by the angle of his eye to be miles high. Modern volcanology will later put the column at 30 kilometers. He cannot see Pompeii from here. He can see the cloud and a darkening below it, and the small dots of fishing boats moving in the wrong direction toward him, away from the southern shore. A small craft intercepts his galley. A messenger climbs aboard with a letter. It is from a woman named Rectina, the wife of one of his officers. Her villa is on the southern coast, near the foot of the mountain. The letter says there is no road out. The only escape is by sea. She begs him to come. He converts the mission. It is no longer scientific. It is rescue. He orders the fleet, the proper warships, the quadriremes, out of harbor and behind him. He gives the order, deducit quadrireme. The pilot, watching the ash beginning to fall on the deck, suggests turning back. The admiral says, Fortes fortuna juvat, Pomponianum pete, fortune favors the brave. Make for Pomponianus, they make for Pomponianus. By the time the ships reach Stabiae, the south wind has trapped them against the shore. The sea is too violent to launch. Pomponianus, the admiral's old friend, is on the beach with his household, his bags packed for sea, waiting for a wind that will not come. The admiral embraces him. He bathes. He eats. He says, loudly and for the benefit of everyone in the room, that what is burning on the mountain is only the abandoned fires of farmhouses. He lies down to sleep. He sleeps so deeply that the men in the corridor can hear him breathing, slow and heavy, through the door. By morning, the courtyard outside the bedroom is half filled with pumice. If they leave the room any later, they will not be able to leave. They tie cushions to their heads with strips of cloth against the falling stone, and they go out into a day that is not day. They walk down to the beach to try the sea again. The sea is still impossible. The admiral lies down on a spread sail. He asks for cold water. He drinks. He asks for it again. What rises from the ground at Stabiae that morning is invisible. It is heavier than air. It pools at ground level. Carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, the gases of the mountain. He stands up once, supported by 2 slaves, and falls. The slaves are sent away. He is left on the sail. When his body is found, 2 days later, his nephew will write that it was intactum in lysum, untouched, unharmed, opertumque ut fuerat indutus, habitus corporis, quiescenti quam defuncto similior. Covered as he had been dressed, the posture of his body more like someone sleeping than someone dead. The boy in Misenum at this hour does not yet know. A boy is walking with ash on his shoulders. He is the same boy. He is 17. He has not slept. The sky over Misenum, which an hour ago was gray, is now black. Qualis in locis clausis, lumine extincto, his nephew will write later, like a closed room with the lamps blown out. Ash has been falling on Misenum for hours. It is on the rooftops. It is in the streets. It is in his hair and on his mother's hair and in the eyes of the slaves walking around them with bundles. His mother is in a small carriage being pulled by 2 men. She is 50 years old and she cannot walk fast enough. The road north out of Misenum is full. Whole households move on it. Some carry torches that cannot quite cut the dark. A woman somewhere ahead is calling a child's name over and over. The earth shakes again, briefly, and the carriage sways, and Pliny tells her son to leave her. She tells him to save himself. He is young, she says. She is old. She is slowing him. He refuses. He takes her hand. He pulls the carriage forward himself. The sea, to their left, has done something he has never seen the sea do. It has retreated. Where the bay should be, there are wet stones and stranded fish flopping in shallow pools, and the keels of small boats grounded in mud. A few people, not understanding, are walking out onto the exposed seabed to look. The water will come back. The dark settles deeper. There are voices in it. Some are praying. Some are saying the gods are dead. Some are saying that there are no gods, that the world has always been this, and now everyone can see it. The boy holds his mother's hand and walks. Hours later, he will not be able to say how many. A thin yellow light returns to the sky. The ash is still falling, but the world is visible again. They turn back toward Misenum. The villa is standing. It is covered, but it is standing. 3 days later, word reaches them that the admiral was found on the beach at Stabiae, looking like a man asleep. A man is folding a toga. He is 19. 2 years have passed since the dark afternoon. He is in a small house in Rome, alone, dressing for a court appearance. His first as a junior advocate, a routine inheritance case. The toga is heavy. It has to be wound and pinned in a particular way that nobody in 3,000 years has fully understood from the outside. He has been practicing. His teacher, Quintilian, has told him he is ready. His friend Tacitus, a few years older, already arguing real cases, has told him he is ready. He picks up his stylus and his notes. He goes out, cut forward. He is 28. He is in the Senate of Rome, standing in the wool toga with the broad purple stripe of the senatorial order, being sworn in as quaestor under the emperor. His mother, Pliny, is no longer alive. His uncle's library, 37 volumes of the Naturalis Historia, his notebooks, his excerpts, is in the boy's house. He uses it. He does not write about his uncle. Cut forward. He is 38. He has just been named consul for 2 months. A consul suffectus, a partial year consul, but still a consul, the highest civilian rank in Rome. He delivers the formal speech of thanks to the Emperor Trajan. It is the only speech of his that will survive. It is correct, polished, careful, public. There is nothing personal in it. Cut forward. He is 40. He is at his villa at Laurentum on the coast, a night's drive south of Rome. He is reorganizing a chest of papers. He finds at the bottom a thin roll of his own old notes. In his own boy's handwriting, taken in the weeks after the eruption, are a few lines about that afternoon. The cloud, the 7th hour, the water that retreated. He reads them. He puts them back. He does not write about it. 23 years have passed. He has buried his uncle, become a senator, married again, married a third time. He has written letters to friends about everything. About the trial of corrupt governors, about how to manage farm tenants, about the death of an old slave who taught him to read. He has not written about his uncle's death. A traveler is riding past a vineyard. It is the year 150, give or take. 2 generations have passed since the eruption. The road from Naples south to Salerno has been rebuilt in a slightly different course on slightly higher ground. The traveler passes vineyards on his right and farmland on his left. The grapes are good. The wine of the region is recovering its old reputation. He does not know that the vineyards are growing in volcanic ash 12 feet deep, and that below the ash, the streets and bakeries and bath complexes of an entire town stand intact, sealed and dark, with their painted walls and their bread still in the ovens. The road he is riding on passes directly over the forum. He rides on. The local farmers call the place Civita, the city, without quite knowing why. By the time of Constantine, no one will remember the name Pompeii. A monk is copying a letter. It is the 9th century. He is in a stone scriptorium at a monastery in Francia, at Fulda, perhaps, or Corvey, where the Carolingian scribes have been gathering and copying the texts of the old world. The window is small. The light is gray. His hands are cold. He copies, one letter at a time, in a clean Caroline hand, from a manuscript that came up from Italy a generation before. He is in the 6th book of the letters of a Roman senator named Gaius Plinius Caecilius Secundus. He reaches a letter addressed to a friend named Tacitus. He begins, Pedis ut tibi avunculi me exedem scribam. He does not know what Pompeii is. He does not know where Vesuvius is. He does not know that the volcano in the letter is real, or that the city the writer is describing is sleeping under farmland in a country he will never see. He copies the next sentence. His hands hurt. He continues. That copy, or a copy of that copy, will end up in a monastery in Italy. and then in a printing shop in Venice in 1508, where Aldus Manutius will print the letters in a small octavo volume that fits in a coat pocket, and that volume will be on the shelves of every educated household in Europe for the next 2 centuries. The city sleeps. The letter travels. A pickaxe strikes a wall. It is May of 1592. A man named Domenico Fontana, an architect-engineer, commissioned to dig a canal that will carry water from the Sarno River to a town on the coast, has put a crew underground. The crew is tunneling. The pickaxe hits stone that should be earth. They scrape around it. Behind the wall, paint, inscriptions, a face. Fontana is called down. He looks. He notes what he sees. He orders the wall covered back over. The canal proceeds. It is finished in 1600. For 156 more years, no one returns to that wall. The city sleeps. The letter waits on the shelf. They have not yet met. A man is reading a letter from a friend. He is 43. His hair is gray at the temples. He is sitting at a low marble table in a small study at his villa at Laurentum, the one he loves, the one he described once to a friend in such detail that we can stand in it now. The room is called a zotheca, an alcove with windows on 2 sides. One window looks south toward the sea. The other faces the garden. The afternoon light is on his right hand, where it falls across the page. The letter is from Tacitus. Tacitus is writing his histories. He needs to know what happened in the Bay of Naples in the year 79. He needs to know it from someone who was there. He has written with the courtesy of a friend and the precision of a historian, asking the question. Pliny puts the letter down. He picks up a reed pen. He dips it in the inkwell of bronze that sits to the left of the parchment. He has not written about this in 27 years. He sits with the pen above the page. The memory is in the room with him now, complete. His uncle on the terrace at Misenum putting on his sandals. His mother pointing at the cloud, Pini arboris, the shape of a pine. His own voice, 17 years old, saying no, the roll of Livy in his lap, the afternoon turning yellow, the dark afterwards, the ash on his mother's hair, the hand he would not let go. He begins to write. He writes carefully, in good Latin, in long, balanced sentences, because that is how a Roman senator writes to another Roman senator. He does not invent. He uses his uncle's own dispatch from the morning of the eruption. He uses his own notes from the days after. He weighs his words. He writes for hours. When he is done with the first letter, he begins a second. The second letter is about himself, about the flight from Misenum, about his mother, about the dark. He sends them both to Tacitus. He has no idea, when the courier takes the rolls, what he has just done. Now hear him begin. Si Plinius Tacito suos petis ut tibi avunculi me exitum scribam, quo varius tradere posteris possis. Gaius Pliny greets his Tacitus. You ask that I write to you about my uncle's death, so that you may pass it on with more truth to those who come after. The letters were copied. The copies were copied. They passed through the hands of monks in Francia and printers in Venice and schoolmasters across Europe. By the time a Spanish military engineer named Roque Joaquin de Alcubierre struck a wall in the soil south of Naples in 1748 and uncovered the first painted room of the buried city, the letters had been waiting on the shelves for 1,669 years. When the diggers found, in 1763, an inscription that read, Rei Publicae Pompeianorum, the city had its name again. The name was the name in the letters. When Giuseppe Fiorelli, in 1863, poured liquid plaster Into the first cavity left in the hardened ash by a vanished body, the matter found its voice. The boy who had stayed home with his book had carried the city the whole way. Pompeii is the most complete ancient city we have. We have the bakeries with the bread still in the ovens. We have the wine shops with the amphorae still on the counters. We have the campaign graffiti painted on the walls. We have the election notices that were posted for an election that never happened. We have the brothels with the price lists scratched into the plaster. We have the small things, a comb, a child's wooden toy, a dog's collar with the dog's name on it. We have the molds of bodies caught in the moment of flight, knees bent, hands raised. About 104 of them, of which 22 are on display in the autumn and winter of 2026. We have all of this because a mountain that no one understood opened on an afternoon and sealed an entire city in volcanic ash up to 20 feet deep and held it sealed in the dark for 1,669 years. That is one half of what saved Pompeii. The other half is the letter. Without the letter, the city under the ash would be a city without a name. There were many such cities under the ground of Italy. There still are. Farmers plowed over them for centuries. Some were found by accident. Some are still being found. Most never had a witness who lived through them and lived long enough to write about them and wrote well enough to be copied. Pompeii had a witness. The witness was a 17-year-old boy who refused to go with his uncle because he was reading a book. He survived because he refused. He lived for another 50 years. At 43, a friend asked him the right question. He answered it in 2 letters, carefully, in his best Latin, without sensation and without invention. He did not know he was doing what he was doing. This is the strangest thing about the long thread of human memory. The people who carry the most across time are often the people who did not know they were carrying anything. They had a private question to answer, a friend to oblige, a debt to settle, a book to finish. The carrying was the side effect. The volcano did its work without intention. The ash preserved without intention. The boy wrote without intention. And on the date he wrote, Nonum Calendus Septembris, the 9th day before the calends of September, a copyist 1,000 years later in a cold scriptorium in Francia almost certainly made a small mistake in the number. The eruption was probably not in August. It was probably in October. We do not know for sure. Even the eyewitness reaches us through other hands. This is what we have. A boy who said no. A volcano that did not know it was a volcano. A monk who did not know what he was copying. An engineer in 1592 who looked at a wall of painted faces and ordered them buried again. A digger in 1748 who looked at a wall of painted faces and did not. Every empire ends, the thread does not. This is the 31st time we have followed the thread. We have watched a Persian polymath in Tabriz finish a history of the world and die for finishing it. We have watched a Babylonian priest in old age write his city down in the language of its conquerors so that something would survive. And we have watched a Roman boy on a terrace with a roll of Livy in his hand refuse an invitation that would have killed him and become, without knowing it, the only reason an entire ancient city has a name. 3 acts of writing against time. 3 different temperaments of the same gesture. Rashid chose and paid. Berossus chose and was almost forgotten. Pliny did not choose and was kept. The thread does not need its carriers to know what they are carrying. It needs only that they carry. This channel is going to rest for a while. The thread keeps going, whether we watch it or not. When we come back, there will be more carriers. There always are. They are working now, in archives and in fields and in libraries, often without knowing. Subscribe. The next civilization is being prepared. Every empire ends. The thread does not.